The opinions expressed in this show do not necessarily reflect the views of Tampa Bay Arts and Education Network.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Connecting with Kim here on Tampa Bay Arts and Education Network. I'm your host, Kim Droege, and we are so glad that you joined us today because we have another great episode coming up. But before we get started, I want you to like and follow the Connecting with Kim accounts on Instagram, Facebook, and X, where you can find all the latest information about the show, about the guests, and of course my on-air wardrobe, which is courtesy of the Spring of Tampa Bay from their thrift store located on North Willow here in Tampa. The net proceeds help support their mission, which is providing safe spaces and empowering services to survivors of domestic violence and their children, which they have been doing for more than 4 decades. So please support their effort. You can also catch the audio of my show on Sun Radio, on 96.3 FM, and on your favorite streaming platform Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon. So please support them by listening to the show. And let's see what else. Oh, you can also find our show on watch.tbae.net, which is our award-winning streaming service. So you can watch my show as well as all the other excellent programming we have here at Tampa Bay Arts and Education Network. All right, so enough of that. Let's get to the show. I am so excited to have this person in the chair. She's a great friend of mine, and I'm really thrilled that she's joined us. And I want to introduce you to Franz Snelling, who is the chairman of the board for the Hillsborough County Anti-Drug Alliance. Welcome, Ellen, to Connecting with Kim.
Thank you so much.
It's a thrill to have you.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So, everyone who watches the show knows we start the same way every single time. I love my guests to share a little bit about their life journey as much as they feel comfortable with, because you just never know when somebody out there listening has shared something in common with you, and that's a great reason for them to continue to listen to what we're going to talk about today. So,
all right,
there you go.
A little bit about myself. So,
yeah.
I am a native Floridian, and I grew up in Miami. And one of my biggest interests was animals. I love pets. I wanted to be a veterinarian. But as I got older, I got a really big interest in physical fitness and nutrition. And so I went to college at USF, and I majored in sciences, but I took some nutrition classes, and that was really my interest, but they didn't have that as a major. So I went to FIU, went back to Miami, and got a master's degree in dietetics. So I became a dietitian.
Oh my gosh.
And that's kind of my journey as far as all that goes. But as time went on, I worked in hospitals as a dietitian. I really enjoyed doing that. But I had got married, raised my children. My daughter was in high school, went to a brand new school here in Tampa, and we were just totally shocked that she was this really bright girl. She did excellent in school. She went to church. She was very athletic. She was a cheerleader. Like I said, brand new school. It was in New Tampa. We thought everything was going to be perfect for that year. But unfortunately, she started going to parties, and by the end of the year, she was smoking cigarettes, drinking, and smoking marijuana. So it was a nightmare. Like I thought this couldn't happen in my family. And I think a lot of other people can probably identify with that. Like it's something, when you think something can't happen, it does.
Right.
And drugs and alcohol are things that, a lot of people have that experience in their family, a negative impact of it. So that kind of brings me to how I got involved with the Hillsborough County Anti-Drug Alliance. So as a parent, I did not know where to turn. And I tried all the different numbers. 211 wasn't around at that time, but the crisis center was there. I called them. I called all the resources I could think of, and one was the Hillsborough County Anti-Drug Alliance. And so I got really great information from them, and I joined, and that was 25 years ago.
Wow.
And I'm still here.
So let me ask you a question. I mean, I've known you for a while, Ellen, but honestly, I'm learning new stuff. So when you joined the, well, first of all, I'm sorry that happened to you. It happens to a lot of families, unfortunately, because alcohol and drugs is so prevalent in our society, and the advertisements are everywhere. And on the television shows, it makes people they think I'm cool, So it's been glamorized by Hollywood and whatnot. So I'm sorry for that, and I know maybe you'll share a little bit more about that journey later. But when you joined the Anti-Drug Alliance, were you also still working at the time? Were you still working in hospitals as a dietitian?
Yes,
were you still doing all that?
I was still working. In fact, I had been living in Sarasota, and I was working at Blake Hospital, and I moved to Tampa, but I was still working there.
Oh,
so that was kind of a long drive.
Yeah, that's
so I was still working as a dietitian, really involved with that, and then there was so many things how it impacted. It was so chaotic. I mean, I'm taking her to counselors, trying to get her help. She is not listening. She continues doing it. I'm at work, worried, bringing her to doctors, trying to get drug tests done, and they're saying, oh no, she has rights, and if she doesn't want one done, you can't do it. It's like, wait a minute, she's 16, what are you talking about? So there were so many things that happened all at one time, and it was just really hard to deal with. So like I said, with the Hillsborough County Drug Alliance was one of the resources I had, and I met people there that I could talk to, and they helped me along the way. But eventually she did get into juvenile drug court. And that, I'm a huge fan of the treatment courts, especially the drug courts.
Yes.
It made such a difference in our life, and she was able to get the help that she really needed.
I wanted this to have a happy ending, because I was going to sit here going, if this doesn't have a happy ending, I'm going to be...
now. Yeah, she's in recovery, but it's one day at a time.
It's one day at a time.
It's one day at a time.
As every addict who's ever knows, and we've had a few on our show, it's a constant, it's a everyday, it's a battle you face every single day. So let's back up and talk about, because they obviously were such a great resource for you and made such a difference for you. Let's let everybody know out there, what does the Hillsborough County Anti-Drug Alliance do?
Okay, well, interestingly, it started in 1989 and was an advisory council for the Hillsborough County Commission.
Okay.
So that's why it's called Hillsborough County Anti-Drug Alliance. We've always kept the name the same. But in 2004, it became a 501c3.
Okay.
And so a separate identity. We wanted to get certain grants from the government that are for community coalitions.
Right.
And to also give us more ability to advocate, not lobby, but we could do more policy work as a 501c3. So that's kind of the history of it, but our mission mainly is to keep our kids and young people off of drugs as long as possible, because research shows that you can keep a child from smoking cigarettes, drinking, vaping, any kind of drug until age 21, which is the legal age. The chance of them becoming either abusing drugs or becoming addicted is much, much smaller. So when you go back, let's say someone's addicted to heroin, you go back, they didn't start with heroin.
No.
Usually they start like smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, smoking marijuana as a child. So that's our primary focus, is keeping our children healthy, finding them alternatives such as sports, arts, music, everything that would be their anti-drug. So that's what we're about, is trying to keep our young people on the right track. We have a youth club called Youth Making a Difference, and we're trying to get them spread into more schools, but we have several schools right now, and they're setting examples for all the other kids, and they're showing them, hey, I can have a great time, I can do well in school, and I don't need drugs. And we also teach them about policy. We teach them how to talk to media, how to talk to legislators. So that's something we would like to expand. But in general, we are trying to keep kids off drugs.
Well, and also, I do believe one of the reasons why you want to delay the consumption of addicting substances is because the brain is still developing.
Yes, great point. Thank you for saying that. That is huge, and that's why we do this. The brain is still found to be developing till age 25, but especially up to age 21. That's when so much is taking place in the brain. And as you mature, it actually kind of grows a little too much. It has to be pruned back. But all of that can be affected by alcohol and drugs. It can have a devastating effect. It can be permanent. a lot of people don't know that. They say, oh, my kid's experimenting. Oh, it's just a little pot. Oh, they're just drinking a little alcohol. We let them do this at home. No. Parents, I will tell them right now, don't do that. Don't let your kid use substances at home, because guess what? You're giving them permission, and what do you think they're going to do when they're out? They're going to do like 10 times as much. So we tell people, just set a good example, set the rules, and stick to it. Experimentation actually is not okay. If it happens, then you talk to your child, get them on the right track. But don't just let it go, because I've heard so many horrible stories of parents that just thought, well, they're just a teenager. Oh, they're having mood swings. They let it go too long, because kids can really keep it as a secret.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to go in their room. If you suspect something, first of all, talk to them. Huge. Communication is very important. But if you think they might be lying and you really think there's a problem, go in their room, look around. Guess what? It's your house. They're living in your house. They're your kid. You have the ability to go in there and make sure everything's okay. You want to save their life. Because like I said, I've seen people that let their kids kind of go and experiment, and they walk into their room one day and unfortunately their child has passed. I mean, it's just, I can't imagine that. I mean, actually, it's gone through my mind because of my child, and I've been through things where you worry, like, are you ever going to see them again? But I've heard those heartbreaking stories of going. And so one thing I wanted to talk about is there's something the DEA calls one pill can kill. Things are not like 20, 30 years ago.
No.
Like a lot of parents think like, oh, it's not a big
Well,
deal.
they're looking back. Some of the parents today are looking back on what was going on
Yes.
when they were in high school and they were experimenting. And I'm like, yeah, I've been there, done that, but I can tell you it's not the same today.
Right.
It's like drugs today are better than any drugs that came before, right? Because that's the whole idea. You keep improving the process, right?
And really there's an industry out there,
Yeah.
Whether it's alcohol,
Well, it's a lot of money.
vaping, marijuana. The more addictive you can make it, the more customers you have. It's all a business.
And a big business. And the other thing I will say, we're talking about the developing brains, because I do believe there also evidence is that girls develop at a different rate than boys. And also that I personally believe that some people, and I've had doctors say they believe this too, that there are just some people born with what we call addictive personalities, in meaning that they have a proclivity. If the circumstances were just right, and if the thing was presented in just the right way, they have a proclivity.
Yes, there's definitely genetics, and I think people, families, if they know in their family their father was an alcoholic, the aunt is, addicted to drugs.
Right.
It's in your family. So that proclivity is there. You really need to be even more careful with your child and talk to them and say, hey, maybe, you don't want to take that first drug. And I've known a lot of people with experience with, like, say, oxycodone or some of the opioids.
Yeah.
And they'll get it after, say, surgery. Like for me, I don't like it. I get nauseated.
Oh, me too.
I
can't understand how anybody could be addicted to that.
But other people, it's like love.
Yeah.
It's love at first sight.
Yeah.
And they just can't get enough of it. So you just never know. And, I would caution doctors to do not prescribe these drugs except in very, very small amounts, like right after surgery.
Right.
Or after wisdom teeth exposure.
Right.
Or, removal. That's when a lot of teenagers are exposed to opioids. So the more you can...
Oh, I hadn't thought about that.
If you can just tell them, hey,
Yeah.
really try
Yeah.
a couple of extra strength Tylenol.
Yeah.
Try a full dose of ibuprofen.
Right.
Don't use those drugs unless absolutely necessary, because for some, that is what gets them started.
The first step.
Yep.
On the
and
long
they're young,
path.
and the brain's still developing. So that's where we have to be the most cautious.
If you're just joining me now and connecting with Kim, my guest in the chair is Franz Snelling, who is a warrior. I can tell you that without any doubt. And who is also the chair of the board for the Hillsborough County Anti-Drug Alliance. So I know you are, we don't have time to talk about all topics, but two we got to hit right away is the vaping, the whole vaping thing, because I know you're an expert about that. And then, of course, we have to talk about upcoming Amendment 3 on the ballot this November. Now, we will not be, telling you how to vote. That's not our job. Our job is to provide information so that you can make an informed decision. So let's talk about vaping, because vaping to me is like, oh my God, I can't even understand it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Again, it's an industry, right? So cigarettes.
Because you have lots of little nice little props here.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you about too,
Yeah.
about the Delta 8. But what happened is, so cigarettes, we did a great job. First of all, the cigarette tobacco industry was sued.
Yeah.
That is what made the difference.
Right.
So there's a lot more funding to try to stop it. You've seen some of the ads, like the truth ads, they're still showing on TV. They're showing people that, like, I just saw the one last night with the lady from smoking cigarettes, she lost part of her foot.
Right.
And there's all kind, black lungs.
Right.
The message is out, cigarettes are dangerous, and the numbers went way down. Well, what's the industry going to do?
Find
Well,
something else, right?
Exactly. So vaping and e-cigarettes, it's the same drug. It's nicotine. One is smoked, one is vaped. Who says vaping's healthy? Who says it's not, that it's not dangerous? Well, it's because it's so new, we haven't done enough research, but there's a lot of research coming out showing that it can be dangerous. There's even that vape lung injury illness that was out a couple years ago. It hasn't gone away. It's just not being publicized.
Right.
But it can actually lead to death. So it's definitely not something that we want children doing at all. It's extremely dangerous. Not just, it's for the developing brain. Nicotine's bad for the developing brain.
Right.
It's also bad for the developing lungs. I heard a lung expert talk about that. So vaping for kids especially is terrible, but extremely addictive. And guess what? Fruit flavors. So strawberry, raspberry.
Yeah, they make it so appealing.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like candy.
If you just look at it, it looks appealing. The latest thing is they're actually making them into like smartphones. I mean, what the industry comes up with is unbelievable. But they're going to have, and I'm saying phones, I think you can actually call on it, but it's almost like a smart watch, but it's also a vape. So they're always kind of disguising it and making it more advanced to make it more appealing to children. So the Anti-Drug Alliance has a vaping class, and it's open to the public if they're interested for their kids, but it's also primarily for children who have citations in school. Because if you vape in school or you have a vape on you, you can get a citation, and then you're required to go to this class. So we have that, and we have a lot of information about vaping if any parents are interested.
Well, and I know our former commissioner, Michael Owen, for District 4, which is my district, was a crusader for this, and was, because they always want to locate vape shops, which are usually in a gas station, next to a school.
Yes,
right? So
yes, he did excellent work on that, and he tried really hard. They had a county-wide ordinance. I went to one of the hearings.
Yeah.
Definitely supported that. But then, unfortunately, sometimes there's some preemption from the state, so they're kind of going back and forth trying to, but these shops should not be right next to a school.
Absolutely not.
Because you don't want kids walking out of school and having easy access to this. So since we're on that topic, I want to get on this.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of things here that I just wanted to point out. These are some products that you can get in any gas station.
kind of maybe show them more to that camera. There we go. Good.
Any gas station,
Yeah.
smoke shops, some convenience stores, they're loaded with THC. So basically, it's a form of marijuana that you could buy in a convenience store. And
Like 7-Eleven or one of those kind of places.
not 7-Eleven,
Oh,
the
not
mom and pops.
Ah, okay.
7-Eleven has not done this.
Okay.
Because,
Well, thank God.
yes,
7-Eleven's
I
not
know.
done.
Yeah. So, but it's got something called Delta 8 THC.
Yes.
They make it from hemp.
Okay.
It's unbelievable. It's a loophole in federal law, also a loophole in our state law. But the point is 350 milligrams of THC in one package. Back in the 60s, a joint had 10 milligrams of THC.
Oh my God!
It's
This is a
just-
tremendous concentration.
It's insane.
Yeah,
it's insane.
And
this
it looks like
one-
gummies or candy or
Yes,
whatever.
It's so attractive.
Like this
All
one.
these
This
things-
one looks like a national brand of candy.
Right, and some of them actually are ripping off the logos and the names of
just
the
a
actual
little weird.
candy.
Yeah.
So Skittles. And yes, the company that makes Skittles has a lawsuit against this.
Yeah.
But these guys are making it in the back room of some warehouse and they're selling it. They just want to make money.
Right.
So, and they're making it off our kids. I mean, any kid would be attracted to that. They're having problems in some of the schools. It's happened right here in Hillsborough County, where a child will bring one of these to, the parents might get it, bring it home, kid brings it to school, passes it out. The kids don't know what it is. And they end up in the nurse's office or even in the emergency room.
Oh my
So
God.
that's one thing I wanted to make sure everyone knew. And we actually worked really hard to get a law passed to stop these things in the state of Florida, but unfortunately the governor vetoed it. So we still have them. So I wanted to get the word out to all parents to know to be careful and make sure you look at the candy in your kid's backpack and tell them not to eat anyone else's candy at school.
Well, I know, Ellen, you spend a lot of time up in Tallahassee advocating and warring against all of this and trying to get the legislature to pass more controls to try to protect our children. And I really applaud you for that, and I admire you for that. I know you know that, but I want to say that publicly because you really are a warrior against all of these things that are trying to entrap, ensnare, and ruin our children's lives. And by ruining our children's lives, they ruin our lives and a whole bunch of other lives.
Right.
At
It's
the
a
same
ripple
time.
effect. I mean, one child's life, if it's affected like this negatively, they start doing poorly in school. They can make really bad decisions. I've heard, I have a good friend whose child used the Delta 8 and it, ended up dropping out of school, having to go to rehab. And it was all from something he bought at a convenience store.
Yeah, that looks like candy.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, and it fools parents and teachers. They don't know what this stuff is either.
Of course they don't, and so you're right. You need to be looking and talking. So we have other things up here. I know So Amendment 3. Amendment 3 must be causing you and I know other people a tremendous amount of angst.
Yes, that is really taking up a lot of my time right now because I'm very passionate about policy.
Right.
And if I see a policy that I feel that could be horrible for our state, but especially our children, then I have to speak out.
Right.
And I'm not afraid to speak out.
No.
So because, it's like mama bears, like you want to protect your cubs.
Right.
So I feel that everyone needs to be educated on the harms that have happened in other states when they have legalized marijuana. So in Colorado, let's take that for example. If anyone's visited Denver, a lot of times just in a parking lot, there's a plume of smoke and there's that smell. And let's say you have your kids with you, you're on vacation, they're exposed to it. I don't want that here in our state. Homelessness, a lot of times will go up in states that legalize recreational marijuana. Even violent crime. I mean, there's things, and I'm not going to say it's directly related, like, the marijuana caused all that, but for example, in Colorado, the crime, especially the violent crime, has gone up every year since it's been legalized. So you can't say it's an exact correlation, but it's definitely there.
Well, there must be something causal. Must be something causal.
Yes, it's got to be related.
Well, I think, from my point of view, first of all, this is a constitutional amendment, right? Now, as my mother always used to say to me, and we both know my mother, amending the Constitution is serious business.
Yes.
So if you are not going to take the time to either read every single word and every single page of the amendment, and if you don't know what it's about or you don't understand it, and you can't read just the summary because that's usually misleading, right? Then your best course of action is probably twofold. Vote no, right? Because once the Constitution is amended, it's very hard to unamend it. And the second, or just skip it altogether. That means just ignore it because you don't know what you're voting for.
Yeah, it's 4 pages. The actual
it's 4
amendment,
pages. I've read every word.
People haven't read it.
No.
So I would recommend that you read the whole thing. One thing that I did see in it that's very concerning, 30 grams of marijuana possession is what you're allowed, or 3 ounces.
Right, 3 ounces.
3 ounces. And that is a lot. You can roll 150 joints from that. So I call it a drug dealer amount. It's not personal possession. It's not like a couple of joints. So I think just allowing that is almost like opening up a black market. And yet they say that it's going to get rid of the black market. So there's a lot of inconsistencies. And then it doesn't say it cannot be smoked in public. So
no, it doesn't.
That's a loophole. So it can be smoked in public because it's a constitutional amendment. If they wanted that in there, it should have been in there.
Right.
And I think once the legislators try to start cracking down on it, then it will be followed by lawsuits. The industry will say, you can't do that. This is a constitutional amendment. So there's a lot of issues with it, and I think, great point. Constitutional amendments need to be really carefully considered. It's our state constitution. Do we really want the right to smoke marijuana in public? Possibly in our Constitution. I don't know.
Well, all I'm saying is that there are 6 amendments. This is one of them on the ballot, constitutional amendments. They are not referendums. They are constitutional amendments. And all I'm saying to people is, take the time and read them and understand every word before you vote, so that you know what you're getting. Because a lot of times people, well, I didn't know it said that, and I didn't know it said that. I mean, we've had, how many times have we had that? You know, well, if you'd have read it, it said it.
Right.
So we only have a couple minutes left, so I want to make sure, because you brought the Narcan, and we talked about it before we went on air, and I want to be sure we cover that.
Yeah, so another thing that is really important in the Hillsborough County Anti-Drug Alliance is prescription drugs, and we have prescription drug takebacks. One's coming up in October, the fourth Saturday, and we want everyone to clean out their medicine cabinets, get all the drugs out, especially the oxys and things like that, so that their kids and neighbors and friends will not get their hands on it. So we also offer.
Also, we don't want it in our sewer system,
yes,
you know, in our water system.
Environmentally,
right.
It's the best way to do. Get rid
terrible.
of it this way, and then the law enforcement's there and they take care of it. But we do give out Narcan at these events, and Narcan is naloxone, and it reverses overdose. So if someone has taken too much oxycodone, or if they're using heroin or whatever, and they're passed out, you give them a spray.
It's a spray,
of Narcan,
right?
It's a spray.
Sprayed in their nostrils.
nose. It can save their life and reverse an overdose. So extremely important, and we have plenty of that. If anyone's interested, you can let me know, and I can help you get access to it.
Oh, and also we want to mention, if they're not overdosing and you spray them with the Narcan, it's something else. It doesn't cause any other problems, so you don't have to worry that you cause an additional problem.
You don't want to think like, oh my gosh, I don't want them to
I
have
don't want to
side
spray
effects.
this.
You just do it.
Right.
There's really no side
Save
effects.
their life.
And you save their life.
Okay.
And then doTERRA.
Yeah, I want to pull this out so you can show that a little bit better. Yeah.
This is activated charcoal, and we also give this out at takebacks, and we have some in the office. But it's in between. The takebacks are only twice a year. We work with the DEA, and they dispose of the medication in an environmentally friendly manner. This, you just take the top off, put about 30 pills in it that are left over that you're no longer going to use.
Right.
And then you put some water in it. It gives you all the instructions on the back. Zip it back up, and you can put it right in your trash. It's environmentally friendly.
So the activated charcoal it dissolves the drugs and makes them harmless.
Exactly.
Cool.
So they can't hurt anyone.
Can you buy this in a drugstore, or where can you get this?
I think they do have it in some pharmacies, but like I said, I know we have it at the Anti-Drug Alliance.
Yeah.
And you can order it online.
Okay, this is fantastic. I never even knew about this because, in my community where I live, we have drug takebacks organized by our resource deputy from the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. We have them twice a year. And I'm always astounded, absolutely astounded at the amount of drugs. We collect boxes and boxes and thousands of pounds of drugs.
And this would be great. I'll talk to you more about that, but maybe we can get an access of this for those takebacks, because those are separate from the ones I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And in communities where there's a lot of senior citizens, they have more medications than ever.
Oh
so
my God.
They need it in between. They can't wait 6 months and just keep that stuff in their cabinet.
Well, we are completely out of time. I can't believe I looked at the timer and I went, that can't be. Ellen, thank you for being my guest today on Connecting with Kim. If you just joined us, my guest was Franz Snelling, who is the chairman of the board for the Hillsborough County Anti-Drug Alliance. So we want to thank you for tuning in today, and we want to thank our sponsor, the Spring of Tampa Bay, for providing my on-air wardrobe. And we want you to come back next week for another edition of Connecting with Kim. So long.